Instead of Bail Organa and Obi-Wan Kenobi taking baby Leia and Luke respectively, both infants were taken by Ahsoka Tano. How would their futures and the future of the galaxy be altered? And could Vader be redeemed? Ahsoka Tano stood silently on the rocky cliff looking out towards the horizon. This was the planet Rada, where she and the children had gone following the formation of the Empire. It was a quiet and peaceful place, and, for now at least, it was untouched by the Empire. As she watched the sun set, the Force spoke to her, tugging at the edges of her mind. She had seen so much over the years and lost it all, but despite all of that, she had never imagined that she would one day find herself responsible for the children of Anakin Skywalker. When Ahsoka took Luke and Leia, she wasn't sure where the path would lead, but she knew what she had to do. Over the years, she started to train them, just as she had once been trained. Ahsoka raised the twins, teaching them all she knew, and helping them grow into not only strong Jedi younglings, but also well-rounded people. While Ahsoka tried to focus on the present rather than the future, she knew that one day they would have to try to stop the Empire, and in her heart, there was always a glimmer of hope that somehow, some way, they could turn Anakin Skywalker back to the light. It seemed like an impossibility, but Luke and Leia were his children, and if anyone could get through to his former self, it was going to be them. The Force worked in mysterious ways. As the years passed and the children grew, Ahsoka continued teaching Luke and Leia how to harness the Force, to fight with sabers in hand, to trust their instincts, and, most importantly, to find balance within themselves. Luke, with his quiet, contemplative nature, was a natural in the Force, his connection to it stronger than Ahsoka had anticipated. Leia, strong-willed and fiercely intelligent, was no less formidable, though she was often impatient with the slower pace of the training. Together, they were a strong duo, and there was a power in their bond that was undeniable. But one thing that Ahsoka never wanted to do was lie to them, so she was open and honest about their parents. She spoke often of Padme, and how she was a beautiful and courageous senator that had served not only Naboo, but the entire galaxy bravely. Similarly, she spoke about Anakin and how he had been a competent master and unmatched Jedi. But she also spoke of how he fell to evil and the dark side, and how he had become Darth Vader. The children would listen and try to understand, as much as their young minds could comprehend such evil. Though she tried to protect them, Ahsoka knew the time would come when they would face their destiny, and that destiny, she feared, would inevitably bring them into confrontation with Darth Vader. Vader was strong, he was a beast, but destiny could not be changed or meddled with. If Luke and Leia were supposed to one day come face to face with him, then so be it. All Ahsoka could do was prepare them as best as she could. The first signs of trouble came one fateful day when an Imperial Star Destroyer dropped out of hyperspace above Rada. The Empire had heard that Jedi were hiding and being trained in the sector, and their hunt had brought them dangerously close. Ahsoka knew what she had to do. With Luke and Leia at her side, she guided them to the T-16 Jedi shuttle she had kept hidden, a relic from the days of the Clone Wars. Ahsoka told Luke and Leia that they had to go. The twins, both of whom were in their mid-teens now, quickly gathered their things and headed onto the shuttle. They knew the routine, and they had practiced it many times, just in case. As they soared up away from the grassy planet and into the depths of space, Ahsoka's mind raced, wondering how long they could remain hidden from the Empire's watchful eye. She looked over to Luke, who was concentrating on the control panel, and to Leia, who held a saber in her lap, her gaze focused and determined. Ahsoka knew that they were ready, but there was only one thing that weighed heavily on her heart: her former master, Anakin Skywalker. It wasn't just his past as a Jedi Knight, it was the fact that he was now Darth Vader, the dark enforcer of the Empire, and the father of these children. And Ahsoka wondered if they could ever truly save him. That day came sooner than Ahsoka had expected. Several weeks later, the trio were ambushed in deep space by an Imperial fleet, and the ominous presence of Darth Vader could be felt emanating from the lead destroyer. The black-clad figure stood on the bridge of one of the ships, his mechanical breathing filling the airwaves, staring out at the lone shuttle, knowing in his dark, cold heart that there was a familiar presence on there. Ahsoka felt a shiver run down her spine. Her former master's presence was unmistakable, and as it reverberated in the Force, Ahsoka knew that the confrontation she had feared for so long was now inevitable. They had run and hidden and prepared for so long, but now was the time to strike. She turned to the twins, her heart heavy, and told the two of them to stay close. She smiled reassuringly at the teens, both of whom were dressed in simple clothing, very reminiscent of a Jedi's robes, and their lightsabers hung from their belts. She had done a good job with the two of them. Luke and Leia smiled back and nodded solemnly. They knew what was at stake, and they knew who was more than likely coming for them. They had never met their father, or the person their father had become, and all they had to go off of were Ahsoka's stories. Ahsoka could feel the apprehension and unease in their hearts, but also the weight of their resolve in the Force. The Jedi shuttle was pulled into the docking bay of the lead Star Destroyer, and Ahsoka locked the twins in the cockpit as she walked to the main central room of the shuttle, awaiting whoever or whatever came through up the boarding ramp and through the breached doors. Sure enough, a squadron of stormtroopers burst in, firing at Ahsoka, who ignited her lightsabers and batted the bolts back towards the troopers. More came, and the bodies piled up as Ahsoka started to tire. She was not as young and athletic as she used to be. The battle was intense, but the Jedi's lightsabers spun and flashed with precision. Luke and Leia, locked in the cockpit, could hear the humming of Ahsoka's sabers just outside the door. The blaster fire was intense, but it eventually slowed down to a stop. And that's when they heard something completely different, something that made their blood run cold. It was a deep, mechanical breathing, as well as heavy, deliberate footsteps. Darth Vader had come. Leia pressed a button on the panel, and the cockpit door slid open. Ahsoka stood with her back to them, surrounded by countless stormtrooper bodies. But none of that mattered, because the air crackled with tension as the shadow of Vader loomed in the doorway. He was as imposing as Ahsoka had always made him out to be, his helmet reflecting the dim light, his presence a suffocating weight on the Force. His mechanical breathing echoed as he stepped forward. He spoke to Ahsoka first, thanking her for coming to him and for bringing the younglings too. It would make the process of destroying them much easier. Ahsoka stood tall, her eyes narrowed. She felt the twins move to her side, their lightsabers ignited. But it was clear that despite all of their training, they were not yet ready for the storm that was about to unfold. Ahsoka turned to face them, and for a moment, she saw a flicker of hesitation in their eyes. Ahsoka stepped forward, raising both of her white lightsabers, telling Vader that she would not let him take them. But she addressed him by his real name, Anakin. It was a simple slip of the tongue from Ahsoka, but for a moment, Vader hesitated, a flicker of recognition in his cold, mechanical voice. He told his old apprentice she was nothing but a relic of the past. Shaking out of that nostalgic moment, Vader lunged forward as his lightsaber burst to life, and the old master and apprentice fought in the galley of the shuttle. Ahsoka fought fiercely, her blades clashing with Vader's red saber as Luke and Leia had their backs to the wall, unsure of whether to help or not. The sounds of their battle echoed throughout the ship and out into the hangar of the Star Destroyer. Yet, as the fight raged, Ahsoka could feel something stirring in the dark side, something buried deep within Vader. Ahsoka pulled back, and Vader just looked from her to the children. It was clear that he was putting the pieces together in his head and started to realize that these were no random apprentices. They were his own flesh and blood, his son and daughter. Vader thought that Padme was carrying only one child, and that it had died alongside her all those years ago. But now confronted with the twins, the truth rocked Vader harder than anything ever had. It was as if he was conflicted, torn between his duty to the Empire and the remnants of the man he had once been. Just her mentioning his name had been enough to reveal a crack in his armor. and Ahsoka knew that she had to take advantage of it. For a brief moment, Ahsoka reached out with the Force, her mind brushing against his. Anakin, she thought, you can still be saved. You are a father. You are not lost. Vader faltered. His breathing became erratic, and for a split second, the grip on his saber loosened. She felt a soft yet light ripple in the Force. Vader's saber wavered. Luke and Leia took their cue. They stepped forward, their combined presence in the Force growing. Together, they reached out to their father, their call not one of anger, but of hope. Luke's voice, full of longing, called to him, and Leia, strong and unyielding, joined in, her words simple but powerful. Vader looked at Luke. He saw so much of himself in the boy. Blonde hair, a longing for excitement and fun and adventure, exactly as he had been when he was a young boy. Then his gaze moved to the girl, Leia, and he could feel her strong and beautiful spirit within the girl. But Luke lowered his lightsaber and looked at the mechanical monster before him, saying, "Father, please, come back to us." The words struck Vader like a physical blow. His saber fell to the ground, and in that moment, Anakin Skywalker was freed. The dark side lifted, leaving him broken and vulnerable. It was that simple and that effective. Ever since Padmé's death, Vader had been holding on to so much anger and hate. She had gone, and it was his fault. His and his master, Darth Sidious. But to see that the love of his life was in fact alive and well in his children was the cathartic closure that he needed. The anger and hate evaporated, and he stumbled lightly, steadying himself on the shuttle's wall. Ahsoka stepped forward, her eyes filled with compassion. She reached out in the Force and found only Anakin, not Vader. And there, in the presence of his children, in the presence of the one person who had never given up on him, Anakin Skywalker made the hardest yet most simple decision of his life. He turned to face them, his head lowered in sorrow, and he spoke, his voice ragged and mechanical, yet full of emotion. He said that he was so sorry, and that he had been lost for so long. With that, the galaxy's greatest darkness was extinguished, not by force, but by the light of redemption. So now that it's over, what did you think of this story? How do you think things would have turned out if Ahsoka trained Luke and Leia? As always, we love to hear from you, so be sure to leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below. If you haven't already, please give this video a like and a subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.